Boom. Here we go. Three guys in a ball. Today's ball is hard targets. We're missing a. Wait, Paul, you shaved your beard again?
I did.
Dang, bro.
I got to keep you guessing, man. That's all it is. You know what? I just wanted to prove that Asian people can grow beards. Like I said, no Fu Manchuing it all out there. So I just want to, let you guys know that. I got shit for it in the army too, by the way. So just don't even all that whole Asians can't grow beards. Like, yes, I can. No, you can't.
Well, it looks clean.
And all my cousins are named Lee and Chan and Chin and.
All right. Well, we're missing Tim today, so we had a fellow defender, mindseted individual, and a battle-tested veteran himself, Mr. DJ, jumping on the call with us. So it looks like DJ's beard balances out yours, Paul. Like he could give you a little.
I try to keep the beard game strong.
Yeah,
especially in the winter months.
Yeah, I like the. I can still see the twist that you just released. You had some braids going on, didn't you?
I was just messing with it the other day, and I was like, "No shit, that's gonna be awesome."
All right, so today we want to just cover a few minutes and talk about kind of shift where we covered like 3 or 4 episodes about active threats, and kind of go right into a topic that goes with that, which is being a hard target. Violence is not something that's new for humanity. I think what's new is the urbanization of our societies and our environments, and how we're forced to be more urban every year. And when violence occurs in urban spaces, it becomes a lot more challenging. And I've seen that in the battlefield, and I know you guys have as well in different experiences in life. So when it comes to being a hard target in any perspective we can go in this, whether it's at the individual level or like at a team level, let me ask you, DJ, what are the most important variables of trying to be a hard target out there?
I'll tell you straight up, it doesn't matter if it's individual or team level because they're pretty much synonymous. The same things affect both of them. It's just the scale that's different. I actually just got done talking to a group of international students last week about why the security profession exists and all of that jazz, talking about embassy consulate security, surveillance detection, mobile security, and all that jazz. The moral of the story is bad guys are going to do bad things. That's why the security industry exists. And we train to either prevent or survive the worst day of our lives. And if we can prevent it, we win. I told somebody the other day and they weren't quite getting it. I said, man, I'm pretty darn good at gunfighting, but I'd rather not have one. Right.
For sure.
And that's what being a hard target comes into effect. If you look like you know what you're doing and act like you know what you're doing, half the time it doesn't matter if you even do know what you're doing, because bad guys, whether it be shooter at a country concert in Las Vegas or Al Qaeda, ISIS, whoever overseas, they're going to go with a target that they want to attack. But if that one looks like it's not going to be successful, they're going to go with what they think they can get the most bang for their buck for and be successful. So that success plays into the equation. And if you look like you're not going to be a successful attack for somebody that wishes to do you harm, that's where being a hard target comes into effect in a big way.
Absolutely. They always choose the path of least resistance. They choose the easiest target. They will always choose the easiest target. It's not just true for terrorists, but it's also true for criminals and anybody else that wants to do you harm. So before we kind of go out a little bit further, DJ, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and explain to our audience who you are, what you do, and all that good jazz.
All right. I'm DJ Douglas Mayer. I was in the Marine Corps, did some combat engineer stuff, some weapons instructor stuff, some intelligence stuff, and then got into the training game after that. Done training for the sake of training. I've trained individuals to do specific tasks. I've run vetting programs for various security programs, both CONUS and OCONUS, both static and mobile. I've trained individuals responsible for training other individuals, and then I've trained the people that have trained them. So just kind of a broad brushstroke of U.S. security operations, both military and diplomatic, both CONUS and OCONUS, for the past 11 years. I've done that, and before that was 8 years in the Marine Corps.
Yes. So I know DJ from being a combat engineer. So one thing that's good to have him on here is he's he's similar to me, where this has just been his entire life, like putting himself out there in this kind of industry and making sure that he just builds his skills and his resume, every day, continues to grow. So it's also good to hear that, starting out as a combat engineer, that doesn't mean that's where you have to leave off. We get out of our specific service, and we might have lat moves, we might not have, but just like you, Paul, and also Tim, who we're missing here, we continue on that path in our security and crisis readiness industries. And I think that's where, being back home in America now, where all three of us are, if we could try to focus on a lot of the issues at home that we went over and fought and dealt with abroad, and now we're trying to help mitigate and limit back home. So could you guys go into a little bit about the mindset too of the hard target perspective, and also how we can teach those that don't understand it to best embody it?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things that I think people need to understand first is that they have to get their mindset to shift. They have to start thinking about their daily lives and everything around them in a very different way than what they're used to. I know a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the bias that is still very, very much reality. And just for those of you that forgot, optimism bias is essentially, there's a scientific term for it that means that people will never see the negative side of things. But basically what it means in plain English is, you know what? Yeah, that happened somewhere else, but it'll never happen to me because I live in a good neighborhood, or I live in the good part of town. I don't live in the bad part of town. I don't expect that stuff here.
It's funny you brought up optimism bias. And I was talking about confirmation bias last week in a big way to a bunch of people from, Nogales, Mexico through Bangkok, about how if I'm looking for something or if I believe something, I have a tendency to only find information that suits my belief. Optimism bias obviously focuses on optimism. Confirmation bias is just confirming what you already believe. And if you believe something's good, you'll only look for good. You see it on TV now all the time, where people look for bad, even if bad doesn't exist. And everything that happens can get spun in a certain type of way to be bad. We were just kind of talking about how that plays into being a hard target, where if, I think everything's good to go, I'm lax. I'm in a zone. I'm just hanging out. And that's setting me up to be a target if the world is in fact on fire. And Jake mentioned urban warfare. We're not in urban warfare per se in the United States, but the threat is asymmetric. And having an asymmetric threat essentially means up, down, all around, 360, 3 dimensions. I have to be ready at all times. Now that's mentally exhausting, and you're not going to be able to keep it up all the time. But in reality, life happens in that gray area between being a hyper vigilant human and being, oblivious to what's going on around you. You got to be able to turn it off and on. You got to be able to dial it up when you need to dial it up. And when we say be a hard target, nobody's saying, walk around with a tank top and massive biceps and guns all over the place. That's just ridiculous sometimes. But that's the perception it gets from a lot of folks. It literally could be as simple as paying attention. Live in the moment, pay attention, look around you, observe your surroundings. And then we mentioned normal. Understand normal. That's something you need to spend time doing regardless of where you're at in life. If I'm going to DC, I need to know what's normal in DC. If I'm going to Jordan or Saudi Arabia, I need to know what's normal. By understanding normal, I can now more easily identify that which is not normal, which is going to buy me fractions of a second, which could be the difference between me making it or not, me saving somebody else's life or not.
All right, I want to ask this to you, DJ. Intuition. What does that word mean to you?
Intuition, not inquisition, but intuition.
Yeah.
Intuition's a lot of things, man. It's not easy to hammer down and identify. Intuition is a feeling, and I don't like to deal in feeling. That's dangerous too. I try to deal in logic and thought, but intuition's just everybody has it. It's a survival mechanism. It's the way that you perceive the world around you. And again, that goes back to normal. Is this normal or is this threatening? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's how you perceive it in that moment, in that location, at that point in time.
Sure. I like that. I mean, it's kind of makes me think it's more like, well, wherever I am at in the present time, like you just mentioned, what have I done to that point to either process like what I'm going to deal with, how I'm going to deal with it, and then what outcome am I desiring too? So I think a lot of people put in their head, like they like I've talked to plenty of people about someone having a gun and them not, and them just saying, I'd be dead. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. Statistically, our most well-trained people on the streets in our country, our police officers, they miss more likely than not. They miss more than they hit. They hit about 28% of their targets that they fire at when they engage with their service weapons.
And that's people that put a lot of time into training. I was talking about this last week, talking about training trainers. And we were talking about standards and metrics and how do we measure success in training, right? And we have this number that we want to hit. We want to hit 80%, 80%. Like, well, what if I told you that the average human, even if they trained, lose about 80% of their skill set under duress? So if I'm training them to 80%, also understanding that they lose about 80% of ability, just your average human, we're really training to zero. I despise talking about what's the minimum I need to pass. It doesn't matter if we're talking about in math class or in gunfighting or anything in between. So I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
That's a good perspective too about drills. Go ahead, Paul.
No, it's exactly. And I was going to say, like, majority of police officers, especially now with a shortage of ammunition, they'll be lucky if they even qualify once in a year right now with the current state of ammunition shortages nationwide. And even then they're shooting with no stress at a paper target, and it's not realistic. I mean, if you want to get good at your craft in an emergency situation, train like, as the saying goes, train how you fight, right? Train under low light conditions, train under adverse weather conditions, train under, stressful situations where they make you run a quarter mile with all your gear on, and then go run the course. Stuff like that, you'll see how accurate you really are, which, by the way, is really freaking hard, especially when you're huffing and puffing to keep that.
There's an enormous difference between taking a precision shot and taking a precision shot after you sprinted 100 yards with an elevated heart rate. And you don't feel it. You don't feel it until you feel it, and you don't know until you've done it.
Right. And another thing is, just to give an example to what DJ was talking about, just for our audiences out there that are not from the military or have never served in or were in the military but never served in a theater of combat, right? So just to give you some perspective on that, think about an office space. And the reason I'm using an office space and office in scenarios because sadly on active shooter incidences, they make up majority of the statistics as active shooters is office buildings. Know the baseline, right? If you want to understand your normal, know what the baseline of your coworkers are. You don't have to know them like your best friend. You just have to know where their quirks are. Like, for example, Bob likes his coffee at 9 a.m. every morning, and he always talks politics for half an hour and rambles on before he settles down and goes about his normal day. Or like Jill over here on the left, she likes it perfectly quiet in the morning, and she has her gossiping hours, and this is what I notice about her, right? So I'm just using that as an example. Like one day you notice Bob, instead of rambling on for 30 minutes, he rambles on for 5 hours, right? That's a little off, but that could just be a one-off. Now if he keeps it up for more than a week or 2 weeks straight, and you start overhearing some of the conversation, and it sounds a little concerning, don't just stand there and go, well, he's just, Bob's just being Bob, but he's a little bit more scarier than usual, or he's being a little bit more a-hole-ish than usual, right? Say something, right?
Bob.
Report it to your HR, report it to your superior, something, because that's not normal behavior. If you've known Bob for 10 years and he's always been a certain way, and for a period of 3 months, he's now this way, well, something's off.
That's just being a good human too, man.
What's that?
That's just being a good human too. Bob might not want to shoot up the office, but maybe Bob's going through some stuff. Just be a good person. That plays a role.
Exactly. You might have inadvertently stopped something from happening. You might have even saved his life.
That's for sure. Yeah, we should. He needs like Sanderson. He needs some comedy, DJ.
Oh, that guy's wild. I like that you brought up Office Space though too, and that's another thing that I've discovered in the last several years. It kind of slightly off topic, but not really. We're all in office spaces, right? Every building, every government building where I essentially live in that world has cubicles. You know what we never used to train on in responding to threats? cubes, right? So now you're talking about bullets going through certain types of things and all of that jazz, and concealment, cover, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have the opportunity to do that, and especially I would hope a lot of organizations have during COVID, is taking advantage of being able to get into places to train that you haven't been able to before because of the people that were there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's good. Hey, so a guy we served with, DJ, his office at the Naval Yard was the one that had the most fatalities. And like the bathroom where he went and took a what every friggin' day at work is the one where that shooter went and loaded up his shotgun. So, we've had plenty of case studies to learn from for this, especially federal government wise as well. And I think the important thing is having these hot washes of incidents and of after action review to make sure we challenge ourselves with the right professionals of where training needs to go in the future, because training is the one investment we control, and what matters is we treat it as an investment, not as a requirement.
100%. And we can't only do it after an after action from something bad happens, right? Too often we wait for something bad to happen to test what we think is working, right? So our normal, if you will, right? We can't always let a Benghazi happen before we decide, oh my goodness, we need to do better at this, 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 and this. Well, we could have seen that prior to, right? We knew that already, just nobody wanted to do it. Or, hey, entering a drug house in Colombia doesn't work when you approach the wall that way, because they've got stencils of human beings inside the building and they're going to shoot through the damn wall, right? And we know these things, but we usually wait for something. Our lessons are learned in blood more often than not, and it's unfortunate. And that's where the other side of training comes in, the brain power. It's not all raw and kick down the door. It's cerebral. And in fact, it's mostly cerebral.
It's sad to say, but 2021 is shaping up to be a very, very, very bloody year. I think there was a report that came out, about a week ago, that literally said that there have been more than one active shooter per day since the start of the new year. I think that's the latest report, more than one a day.
Yeah, there's a lot of correlation to that. You can add the mental health, the COVID, the elections.
It's a whole bunch of things.
I was on my other podcast, The Weekly Pill. We talked about that I had Dr. Harris on there, with his mental health experience. But I think before we close here, I think we should each share kind of our final thought on the hard target perspective and how we can help fellow man and woman and identify, however you identify people out there, what you can do moving forward, which is, look, be observant, be patient, be methodical, but don't let fear win, because you can learn how to respect your fears and have more courage and be ready to face the demons out there and the evil out there, because part of what they do, in my perspective, is because they want to see how much they can control through our natural fears. So I'll leave that as my final note. More courage, less fear. How about you, DJ?
I would say do the prep work on the front end, right? I had a PE teacher one time tell me that luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and I bought into that in a big way then. And I learned it actually in Dallas when I went there to drop some stuff off in Waco for a course we were doing down there. Didn't know anything about the area, but I studied it. Thank goodness I knew how to read maps. If you don't, that's an easy skill to pick up. But the difference between being somewhere and looking at your phone, or being somewhere, even if you're entirely lost, but being able to pretend like you know where you are, could be the difference between you getting attacked or you being robbed or something bad happening to you and not. So sometimes just the perception of you knowing or looking like you know what you're doing could be the difference between something bad happening and not. So I'd say do the prep work would be the best advice I can give. And again, I'm all about prevent the attack from happening. Don't just train to survive one, learn to prevent them. And if you can prevent them, you're going to win every one, because they're not going to happen.
Are you, Paul? So I'm DJ kind of took it right out of my mouth, the words, especially the last part about about being aware. But I'm just going to leave it simple. Stay alert, stay alive, right? Especially about the point about where most people nowadays, they kind of just do this, and they're walking, they're sitting down, they're doing this. They don't even talk to anybody left and right anymore. They literally just keep in their own bubble, and they're the dopamine is just coming right from their phones. They don't even give a crap about people to the left and to the right of them, right? You have to, at least at the very minimum, take your head off your phone and just look around. Most criminals will pick the easy target. If at least you're looking around, you're at least giving the perception that you are a little bit more alert than the average Joe nowadays, and chances are you will not be messed with. So I mean, that's about as simple as I can make it. Like I said, just stay alert, stay alive. That doesn't mean paranoia, right? None of us three are here are asking you guys to become paranoid about what's going on. That's not what we're saying. Just be aware of your surroundings. Don't fall into the trend of having, of being on your phone and being sucked into social media 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Put your phone away. Right? Leave your phone at home. You'll be surprised how much more you're going to be looking around. Trust me, try it. It does amazing things without having a phone. You actually become human again.
Or because communication could be vital in any imperfect situation, kind of like why you wear your seatbelt when you drive your car. You can't predict that person hitting you. Don't leave your phone at home. Put it on airplane mode. Put it in your purse pocket. Okay? But take some time away from it maybe. Because it could be your lifeline.
There's 350 million-ish people in this country, and a majority of them aren't looking to do harm either, right? So there's that. So nobody, again, he's just said, don't be paranoid. I can't stress that enough, but you do need to be aware, right? And most people aren't out to hurt another human at all, but there are some, and we don't know who those are. And because we don't know who they are, means they could be anywhere, which means we need to be vigilant all the time.
Beautiful. And look at your bank receipts, because that's where you go. And that's the place you need to be prepared and ready to either counter or defend yourself in any given type situation. Because there's a lot out there we can't control, but we can master ourselves. So, all right, guys, 3 guys in the ball. And again, our guest DJ, appreciate your time, brother. We would love to have you back on. You as long as you grow that beard out more.
I'm trying to get the mustache out more, man. I'm going past the ears. That's my dream.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, next time we have you on, hopefully we'll see that. But other than that, appreciate it, guys. Remember, stay vigilant and just, respect the things out there. Okay. Because there's a lot of things out there that we can't control.
Here we go.